start. And welcome everybody and good evening. Thank you for coming to our third session with the study coach team. We are very happy that we started this collaboration, and we hope that we can we'll be able to help as many students as possible. Already the previous sessions, I personally learned so many things that even though I'm a third year student, didn't know yet or didn't even try to, for example, to implement in my study method and things like that. So it's, even though it's targeted for a certain year study, we always learn. And as usual, I like to thank the study coach team, and tonight in particular, Ms. Donald and Ms. Gabiola. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. I know last time I I mispronounced every single time both Mr. Bart and Ms. Kostova last name, so I'm gonna definitely try to improve on that. Thank you again for doing this, for helping us out, and yeah, I will give you the floor now, and in the meantime, Veronica and I will also monitor both the chat, and we will see if there are questions. So you can just raise your hand, and then we will give you the floor. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you very much, Bianca, and thank you very much, ILSA, for inviting us here tonight to speak with you. So, yeah, as the event is called, it's Let's Get Back on Track. And as the study coach team, we first of all really want to introduce ourselves to you so that you know who we are and how we can help you. And then some of you who have registered, you mentioned some issues that you're facing. So I'm going to just try and address some of those common issues for Year 2 students. And then we're also going to speak about how you can work on improving your legal writing, taking it to that next level, and also in particular, making your public speaking so much better, especially with the moot court coming up. So we hope you're going to find it helpful this evening, and please do ask questions throughout the event, and then also at the end we're happy to answer any questions that you do have. My name is Kirsty Donald, and I'm the study coach coordinator, and we have a team of 6 of us, the study coach team. There's Madonna Hamidi, Eliška Kostielova, Bart Krysiak, Ellie, Caroline Highland, and then tonight we've also got with us Miss Leila Gayabova.
Hello.
Hello. And we're all study coaches. You may already recognize some of the faces. A couple of them are Year 2 tutors, Ms. Kostielova and Mr. Krysiak, and then the other 3, Ms. Gayabova, Ms. Hamidi and Ms. Highland, are Year 1 tutors, and then there's myself as well, who actually studied international and European law a few years ago in this program. So I do actually have insight knowing what it's like to be a student within this program and to have to graduate through it. So we're all here to help you. Now, I don't know if you're aware what we do as the study coach team. You can visit Blackboard and you can sort of see some more information, and there's lots of useful documents about how we can help. But I'd also like to tell you tonight ways that we can help. The useful documents, though, that you can see within Blackboard can be very useful for you. For example, there's the year planner, so you have an overview of the important dates, when exams are, when resits are, for making your schedules. There's an organogram, which sort of shows you who's who within the faculty. Sometimes it's confusing who is the lecturer in charge of what, so we show that information there. Some of you who are already thinking possibly about doing exchange, doing a master's, might be interested in GPA, and we have your GPA in a certain way here at the Hague University, but you might need to translate that. So we also have a GPA guide. There's also information there for how you can contact student counsellors and also the psychologist. Now, we are study coaches, so we can help you with any aspects of your academic progress. But then there are also the student counsellors who can help you if you have personal issues, maybe at home, with health, something that is affecting your academic progress, and then you can make an appointment with a student counsellor. And if you need to be referred, they will refer you to a psychologist. If you would like to make an appointment with us, and we're happy to have meetings with you on Teams to talk about your studies, then what we ask first of all is for you to fill out an Excel spreadsheet, which you can find on Blackboard, which is just an overview of which courses you've passed and which you still need help with. And we ask you to send that to us along with a study plan, and then you can make a meeting with us and we can discuss your situation with your studies. Now, on Blackboard itself, you can go along and we've got lots of useful information from all aspects: time management, note-taking, how to improve your speaking, your diplomatic skills. And so you can access some useful clips there that we have created ourselves. We're in the middle of creating some useful knowledge clips, but we've also found some useful ones for you on YouTube, and you can find them, as well as useful blogs. So please do visit that and see the resources there, and we're trying to improve it all the time for you. But just to let you know about what we do, so basically we want to first of all help you be successful in your studies. So we're going to give you different useful study tips. We also want to minimize any study delays. Perhaps something's happened with health or something else in your life that could cause a potential study delay, then please get in contact with us as soon as possible. We'll have a study meeting, we'll work out a study plan together, something that's feasible to help you making progress so that you can successfully graduate. We also will help give you advice. Now, I know sometimes there are issues with OSIRIS, perhaps missing grades. Perhaps if you've been in the program a while, courses could have changed, names could have changed. We can help you with this issue. We can also help you with PER. The PER document, that's the Program and Examination and Regulations document, and you can find that in our folder on Blackboard. That is basically the constitutional document for the law program, and it gives all the rules about how you can progress to each year, what you need to do to pass certain years, tests. For example, that you're only allowed to take 2 exams per year, 2 assignments per year, but it also has useful information at the back as well about registration. So we really would recommend you to go to the PER if you haven't visited it already and get familiar with that document. But we can also help give you advice according to your rights with PER. And if necessary, if you need to make a certain request with the exam board, we can advise you on making a case, how you do that through OSIRIS, and we'll help you each step of the way. And particularly some students might require special facilities for a particular reason. They might need, for example, extra time in exams, and we can advise you on this process as well. For example, you need to make an appointment with a student counsellor, but at the same time apply through the exam board. And for example, if you have a special need because of an issue such as dyslexia, then you should be allowed to get certain special facilities, and we can help you with this process. So that's basically what we do, the study coach team. We're here to help you, to assist you with your studies. So please reach out to us. Reach out to us and we'll help you get back on track, prevent you from getting a study delay. Also, within PER, the program examination and regulations document, there's also important information about year 4 eligibility. And I just want to highlight that to you now as year 2 students, because at the moment in the PER, the way that you can progress to year 4 is that you must have passed year 1 and year 2. And then you need a certain amount of credits from year 3 as well. So it really is important that you focus on year 1, if you haven't passed it, getting your proper DALSA, and also this year 2. And then it will help you to progress to year 4. But if you didn't have quite enough credits from year 3, what we can help is create a study plan, and with the approval of the study coach, you can still enter into year 4 and do your internship and begin your thesis. So we also help you with that, with entering into year 4 and being successful. So we're there to help you. And also, if you're just not sure who to ask or where to go, please come to us and we'll either try and help or we'll point you in the right direction. And the best way to contact us is to just email us at the study coach team, and I'll give you our email. So there it is, law-studycoach@hhs.nl. Now I'll just go back to that previous slide, because we do all sorts of events like this to try and help you, but we've also created a sort of student empowerment program. It's the mentorship program, which we'd like to invite you, if you're interested, to take part in. It's basically a peer-to-peer support program where if you feel you'd like the help of a more experienced student, perhaps who's doing a specialization that you're interested in, or wants to do a master that you're also interested in, then we can match you and you can help each other, give support, learn from each other. Or perhaps you yourself as a year 2 student feel confident and you'd like to help a year 1 student who might face similar issues that you faced when you first joined the program. So if you're interested in either becoming a mentee or a mentor with our mentorship program, then please contact us as well, and we'll be very happy to hear from you and to match you with a fellow student. And I think the thing is, particularly in times like global pandemics, which we're in at the moment, it's not easy, but sometimes by matching with other people or helping other people, this can help yourself. So I really recommend it. Okay, so that's an introduction to us, the study coach team. And now I'm just going to move on to some of the questions, that you wanted to know from us. You had some questions. When you registered, we asked you, what would you like to learn during this workshop? So I'm going to go through these, and some of you wanted to know how to deal with failure. And I know that we've just had the exams and I know the results are coming in at the moment. And for some of you, it is a little bit disappointing when you're getting certain grades. At the moment, some of you are not getting the grades that maybe you used to get when we didn't have the online exams, or maybe you're not passing at all. And you want to learn how to deal with this. So first of all, I would like to try and get you to change the way that you view failure and sort of see it as a learning possibility. And try and also, I mentioned the pandemic, be kind to yourself and the situation that we're all in, but also try and learn from it. What I want you to do first of all is, don't see it as success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. I found that quote and I think it's really great, because I think basically you've got to see this as a learning opportunity and try and analyze what you could have done better, potentially. So definitely encourage you, go to the exam reviews, find out what went wrong, apply that in the resit. If the resit has already gone and you don't have any more opportunities to pass the year 2 courses, I've already stressed, I hope, that year 2 is an important year in order to enter year 4. But don't worry, we've still got time. So next year you can do the resit again. But I encourage you, please contact us at the study coach team. If you've taken an exam twice, failed it twice, we can look together, perhaps discuss what you could do next time. And of course, in year 2, you also have your tutors, so contact them as well and see if there's anything, advice that they have about how you could improve how you're doing the exams or the assignments. I mentioned this in one of our first events with ILSA, and that's just to do with this certain mindset. There's the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Now, a fixed mindset is if you think you have a certain intelligence, people are either smart or not. And I know a lot of us were probably smart at school. We probably did very, very well compared to our peers at school. But then all of a sudden, when we start at law, it's not so easy to necessarily breeze through the exams like perhaps we used to at high school. Because to be honest, law is quite a hard slog. It takes quite a lot of work and effort, and it's continuous here in the Netherlands at a Dutch university. It's very different in the UK. You get very long holidays and then it's just the exams, but this is constant and you just need to keep working. But I encourage you to adapt a growth mindset. Just see failure as a learning opportunity, a way to improve, and then just keep going. So that's how I would recommend dealing with failure. And then we had another question. Someone else said, I need help with note-taking during class. Please visit our Blackboard. We have some useful clips about note-taking. I'd like to just draw your attention to one particular method, though, the Cornell note-taking method. And there's lots of very nice videos on YouTube about this. This is about how to divide your notes to really write them well. So you actually end up writing them 3 times. The first time, then you pick out the sort of really key words and write them on the left-hand column, and then at the bottom you write a summary. And after you've done that these 3 times, you should be ready to basically take an exam or really know a subject. But I would also like to sort of say, and someone asked about organization and balance between workshop readings and lectures, and this is also to do with note-taking. Basically, you've got to sort of take notes a few times. Make sure that you read before a lecture or a workshop so that you go prepared. This will help you be a lot more interactive during the lecture and the workshop, because you won't be hearing it all for the first time. It will rather, what's being said will just be confirming the information you've already read and prepared. And then you'll feel more confident to ask questions. Then during the lecture, in order to keep active, because I know it's quite easy to sort of daydream and get distracted, keep taking notes as well, not necessarily typing, just do it actively with the pen, and because that's also known, that physical sort of writing, it gets the information well into your head. And then once you've done these two parts of note taking, afterwards try and take some time just to consolidate your notes once more, and you can make them into cue cards, and then you will be prepared for the exam. And of course, I say cue cards, but now that we're doing the online exams, it's also good to take those sort of notes and prepare them in a Word document as you're preparing as part of your exam preparation. Someone else asked about tips for regaining motivation for studying. And I know, again, some of you are feeling perhaps disheartened, demotivated, perhaps with getting exam results. So once again, just be kind to yourself. You're doing your best in this situation. If you are feeling very demotivated or you're not really sure what to do, then reach out to your tutor, your study coach, your classmates, or if you've joined the mentor program, to your mentor. How did they pass a certain course? And you can discuss it with people. And then if you're not feeling motivated now, I spoke about motivation a lot in the first event that we did, and you can look at that on YouTube. But basically, there's the 5-minute rule. So don't wait to feel motivated. It's not a feeling. You've just got to start. And tell yourself, okay, I'm just going to start for 5 minutes. But normally 80% of people, once they've started for 5 minutes and just made that start, then you will continue. Someone else, they asked another question, and I'm just trying to move that forward. So they said, how can I prepare better for exams and for assignments? Now, last week's event, which was actually for year 1, but it's relevant because Bart Krysiak, one of the study coaches, he talked all about how to prepare for exams, and you can watch that. But basically, my main tip is know your subject well enough to be able to teach someone else. This is the way that you'll really know whether you understand a topic or not. And also, don't fall into the mistake of, because it's an online exam and you've got all your books and everything accessible, that you don't need to prepare as much as perhaps you used to when you could go to the Broodfabrik and you didn't have everything near you. The thing is, when you have all the materials available, you need to know everything even better. There's no time to think. You've just got to know really well which materials to select. So that's how to prepare for the exams. And with the assignments, how to do well and prepare for the assignments is give yourself time and time management, and don't wait till the last minute. I also spoke about procrastination in our first event, and you can watch the video on that. But basically, be kind to yourself, plan during the week, and start your assignment a few days ahead. I was speaking to one of our students who's a mentor in our program, and she said that she started doing this and her grades are rocketing now. It really will have an influence on your grades rather than doing it last minute. Someone else asked about internships, and of course you've got that all coming up in potentially year 3, and they're saying, what kind of experience is most relevant to have on my CV when applying for an internship? Now, next week, Ms. Leila Gayabova is talking to you, or talking to the year 3, especially about internships, so you can also watch then. And one of the representatives from the internship office will also be there, Agnes Macedo, and they can answer questions. But what I would say in particular is follow your passion. Think about what your dream job is, and perhaps you already know, perhaps you know why you went into law. Maybe you have a certain passion already, that you want to work for a particular NGO, or you want to work for a particular international criminal court. think about what they want and then work backwards and try and add that to your CV accordingly, whether it's you need to improve your French language skills or whether you need to show that you're an expert in a particular field. Now, I know one idea is that some students get their internship from literally selecting one course in year 3. It might be legal tech minor, or it might be alternative dispute resolution, and then using that they can contact a firm accordingly, showing that they have that expertise, and then firms will be interested and very happy to have them. So that's some of your questions, and I hope I've answered those. And then we also asked you, as a second year student, what are you struggling most with at the moment? And I'll try and just address some of those questions for you. If anyone has any questions up until now, though, please do feel free to jump in and ask. So, the first issue that some of you are struggling with is group work. Now, I don't know maybe what the reason is. It could be many things that people have issues with group work. And when you go onto the internet and you look at memes, there's a lot about group work. And I know it can be quite frustrating because you're obviously dealing with different personalities, and sometimes communication can be difficult as well. Not just understanding each other in English, because we've all got a very high level of English, obviously studying international and European law in English, but perhaps there are cultural misunderstandings that are going on. Once again, I would just choose this opportunity as a learning experience. It's all preparation for when you'll be at work, working in an international firm or an international organization. So just be as professional as possible and keep trying to think, okay, how can I deal with this? What's the learning experience here? And you be the professional one. If anyone has a particular question about group work, then please feel free to ask me, but that would just be my advice for getting on with group work. I know it can be difficult though when different people have also different goals. If you yourself want to get a very high score and you've got someone else who perhaps is just happy with a 5.5, but yeah, good luck. And we have got a hand up. So do we have a question here?
Yes. So what should we do when we are Bradley Cooper in this picture and our group looks a bit like this?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, the thing is, ultimately, everyone has different goals, don't they? And if your particular goal is that you want to get at least 8.5, and the rest of them aren't bothered, ultimately you're going to have to do what you have to do in order to make sure you keep your GPA up. And that is tough and it's difficult, but luckily it's only for a semester and then you never have to deal with the people. But Layla, would you like to jump in? Do you have any other advice? Because you must come across this issue with your tutees.
Yeah, I do come across this issue quite a lot, actually. And I would give the exact same advice, but I would also suggest, of course, raise this with the group, because what I see is that some of this Bradley Cooper kind of students, they seem to be a bit reluctant to flag this. And they think that it's quite useless, you know, to discuss it with their peers and just politely explain that you're not happy with the situation. But I think that's probably the best way to move forward, to just have this conversation. And if you feel like it doesn't help, then you can even raise it with the tutor, I think. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course, if you do it, again, politely, and you explain why you're not necessarily happy. Your tutor can help you a lot because, for instance, what I do with my groups is when I see that they're not necessarily contributing equally, I split them into groups in the tutorial and we work on the tasks sort of together so that I can jump in and monitor the progress. And that way, nobody really has the chance to procrastinate because we're working on the task together. So that could also be an option. But I would say it's probably the measure of last resort, so to speak. But don't be afraid to discuss this with the group, I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks. And yeah, I mean, if you also sort of treat it as if, imagine you were all colleagues in a firm or something, probably there would be an HR department who would first make sure that you had some nice team bonding. There would also be certain, yeah, sort of communication. I mean, sometimes there is certain behavior that we don't always realize why people are behaving that way. The Bradley Cooper could be very anxious, nervous. They could feel they don't have anything more to contribute. There might be something else going on in their life. And I think a lot of us are having different issues, particularly in these last 12 months going on in our lives, that can actually be tremendously stressful. Perhaps it is laziness on their part. I would establish that, and then yeah, and then if not, good luck. Yeah. Okay. Has that helped at all?
Yeah, I mean, personally, my tutor is really nice. It's actually Bartosz Krysiak, and he knows that I'm the Bradley Cooper. But there's Bianca laughing. But you know, there's just so much that he can do, also because he can't just step in. And I think there's some added difficulties coming from the fact that we met online.
Yeah.
Maybe some people we knew from last year, but most of us, we've never worked before together. So having like all the first meetings online, that was also kind of tough.
Yeah, I can understand. And then I would, if possible, try and take some opportunity to just get to know each other before you start working, because we don't let down our friends, do we? Whereas with strangers, we possibly don't care so much. So hopefully if you build that a little bit, it could help. But glad that, yeah, Bartosz Krysiak is being supportive. So good. Okay, thank you. And then someone else said they're struggling with time management during study week. I would just recommend, in particular, making a schedule and sticking to that schedule. In the previous ILSA event, Let's Get Back on Track, 15th of February, you can see Anališka Kostielova goes over a lot of good, useful habit trackers and schedules, ideas for you. But basically, even if you make a list and just stick to it and treat it a bit like a job. So get up in the morning, get ready and do your job. You can take a lunch break, you can take a couple of pauses, but maybe work until 5 or 6 like a job, and then rest, and like you deserve to rest, and like you need to rest as well. We all need to rest our brains, get enough sleep, have a bit of balance. Someone else mentioned, and I'll try and go to the next page. So they said, what can I do about I'm struggling with declining grades, motivation to pick up studying, and maybe anxiety. And I know as the results are coming in and they're not the results that you want, and you're sort of looking about your future and you're getting all stressed, it can be very anxious, make you feel anxious. So if you're feeling like this, reach out to your tutor. Your tutor is there to help. They have your best interests at heart. Also get in contact with other classmates if you have a study group. If you've joined the mentorship program, speak to your mentor, contact us, study coach. We can discuss and help you minimize any study delay. But if it really is becoming very stressful for you, then get in contact with a student counselor. We recommend just booking an appointment, chatting with them, and they might have some useful help and be able to support you. So please do reach out if you're starting to feel very stressed about things and it's starting to affect your health. So then other people said that they're struggling with exams in the new format. I know it's all changed quite a lot, and now it's 3 hours to 2 hours. So I would just recommend, make sure you know what the lecturers want from the exam. And if you didn't know the first time and you've already failed, make sure you go to the exam review, find out where you went wrong so that you're ready and you can pass that resit. And just prepare as much as possible beforehand. Someone else said they're struggling with keeping up to date with all courses. So again, keep a schedule, make a plan, and use habit trackers to sort of keep on top. You're going to have to be quite disciplined, but it is possible to do that. And if you feel you are falling behind, then get in contact with us, the study coach team, and we can also discuss it with you, or perhaps your tutor can as well. Someone else said that it's difficult maintaining a healthy work-life balance. And I know, and we're doing it now, aren't we? It's gone 7 o'clock in the evening and we're still in front of a screen. It is very important for you to make that effort to get outside, get that fresh air, have a walk. And that can be done by having a schedule, getting up early, normal time as if it's a work day, and then do your most of your work during those sort of 9 to 5, 9 to 6 hours, taking those breaks, having a walk if possible at lunchtime, and then that will help you balance. And then you can relax in the evening as well and treat yourself to a nice Netflix series or something else relaxing. Someone else mentioned, how can I improve my focus and my concentration? Now, there could be some different factors here. With focus and concentration, it is a skill. Our brain's like a muscle. So actually, we need to build up. And you can gradually work to be able to focus more, to be able to read for like an hour, and then you can read even longer. So that's a skill which you need to do systematically every day and build it up. But obviously distractions don't help. So be aware of those and switch them off. Turn off your phone, put it in flight mode for that certain period of time that is your study time. And yeah, just also be kind to yourself again. If you are particularly having troubles with focus and concentration, is it because of distractions or that you haven't built it up enough? Or is it because you're not getting enough sleep or you're too stressed? And obviously not enough sleep can lead to even more stress. So if there is something a bit deeper there, again, make an appointment with a student counsellor, talk through, and then they can also help you in case there is an underlying issue that can be resolved. Okay, so that was the end of the questions that people asked in advance that you're struggling with, and I hope I've answered them, but if anyone's got any questions, please let me know. And then you also wanted to know how to improve your legal writing. And so I quickly want to talk about that before I'm going to hand over to Layla. Now, with the legal writing, obviously it is, it's a skill that we all need to learn. And when you've learned it really well, it's a powerful thing. But the use of a lawyer's words. And there's this lovely saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. And obviously that is the tool of our trade as lawyers that we use in order to win cases. But it is a skill, it is a discipline, and so you do need to just keep on practicing it, keep on honing it, and with practice, practice makes perfect, and obviously you'll get better and better. But don't practice until you just get it right. Keep practicing until you can't get it wrong. So this is an ongoing thing, and you're now in your second year. Your writing will continue improving right up until the end, till the pinnacle when you write your thesis, your applied research project at the end of year 4. And then, of course, if you go on to masters or if you go into the work field, you'll continue. So do see it as an evolving skill that you'll keep on improving. But make sure that you are confident about all the legal structures, whatever it is that the teacher is asking, whether it is Iraq, whether it's a research essay, whatever it is that they're asking, make sure that you know exactly how to do this. And if you do still have any questions about it, then do speak to your tutor, because they're the ones that are there and for you to help. And also they're the ones who are marking it. And sometimes certain people can have certain preferences or certain pet peeves that they don't like you doing, and you could be marked down accordingly. So make sure you really know what your tutor wants and then give it to them. Make sure that they see what they want to see, and then they can't but give you a good mark for your assignment. And this is just a good skill to do, because obviously once you are a lawyer, you're going to have to work your best to write for your different clients, write according to what the judge wants to see. So it's good to get into, and now you just have to write according to what your tutor wants to see. Now, just the way that if you sit back and you watch an excellent lawyer on the TV and you think, wow, look how they're arguing, read excellent documents about how they write excellent legal arguments. Now, every legal document will be unique according to that particular case. So you can't necessarily copy it, but just try and see what they did effectively and try and incorporate it into your writing. So analyze and then incorporate. Now, in order to really have good writing, you need to make sure you've done all your research so that you can find the best legal sources, you know the counter arguments, you know the stronger, higher legal authorities, and you also can then take your thoughts and organize your paper very effectively. One idea per paragraph, very strong topic sentences. But obviously, in order to do this, you need to give yourself time. Starting on Friday before the assignment is due is not going to help you. So spend that time, give yourself a week to start your research earlier in the week, and then start organizing. And then once you have started writing, well, then you'll probably have to rewrite perhaps a couple of times. Start with a draft. Some people think that it should be very complicated legal English, and we've got all these certain words that we use, aforementioned, herein, but actually it's much more effective to keep it simple and not go too complicated or complex. This is a skill in itself, but it can be extremely effective. So don't be too complicated with your language. Also, be confident, don't overquote your sources. Take what you need and refer to certain laws, but you don't need to quote too much, because of course you've also got your word count. And then you need to edit. You need to keep editing so that you can be as concise and accurate as possible. And of course, you've got these word counts that you'll be penalized. So again, that's a skill. And to be honest, I used to find it the hardest skill to actually not write too much, but that's what you're aiming to do, to be concise as possible, and then just proofread. And obviously it's very important as well that you get your citations correct. And I'm going to put into the chat for you this excellent document, the Guide to Foreign and International Legal Citations from the New York University School of Law. And that has all the citations from all over the world that you might need, and it's very useful for you to refer to and hopefully be able to cite correctly. So that's the end of my part of today's presentation. If you do need help with writing, if you think you still need help with improving, first check with your tutor if they have any tips about how you can improve. You could also check with your mentor if they have any advice, but then also reach out to us at the study coach team. I myself teach legal writing and have taught it, for instance, at Maastricht University, and I'll be happy if you did want an appointment just to say, what do you think the main issue, or could you explain this? And then we can have a chat about how to do that. So there we are. That's my tips about how to improve legal English writing. So good luck. And I'm now going to hand over to Leila.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. Am I audible? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you very much for your excellent tips. I really enjoyed it. I'm now gonna talk about public speaking. Let me see if I can move the slides. Right. So as you can see from the slide, when we're talking about effective communication, probably the first thing that should come to your mind is the so-called 7-38-55 rule. I don't know if you've heard about it before, but essentially it all boils down to the importance of controlling the pace of your speech, the tone of your voice, and making sure that you're aware of your body language. And the content is, of course, important, but if you manage to control your voice and if you are aware of all these body language cues, then that's already part of the success. So if you think about it in terms of this percentage, I think it's quite interesting, because what happens is we are sometimes really preoccupied with the content, especially when we participate in all this moot court, debating competitions, and we tend to forget about the delivery. So you will all be participating in the mandatory project in the ICC moot court, and I know that perhaps some of you are already dreading the final event, but of course there's plenty of time to prepare for that. And there's also the Skill 7 course, which is representation. So whether you like it or not, you'd have to speak in public, even though in an online setting, of course. And that means you'd have to be comfortable and you'd have to do your best to become an effective communicator. So with that in mind, I thought that I will give you some tips on public speaking. And once we've gone through those tips, we can also focus specifically on the ICC moot court project. And I will give you some tips on how to structure your speech, how to respect the formalities, and also share some of the good sources that you can hopefully make use of. So those are the YouTube videos that you can, of course, watch later on of some of the excellent performances. Right, so let's make a start. And I want to first talk about choosing an appropriate tone of voice. I think ultimately you should make sure that you know what your goal is. So when you're performing, when you're delivering a presentation, let's say for the ICC moot court project, you should ask yourself a very simple question. Is your speech merely informative, or what is actually the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose of your speech? Are you perhaps trying to advocate for a particular cause, or maybe you're rebutting the arguments raised by your opponents? And of course, when we're talking about the moot courts, that is your goal. You are really trying to actively listen to the opponents, to the arguments raised by your opponents, and then subsequently try to think on your feet to come up with creative arguments to rebut those arguments of the opponent. Right. Another question that you should also make sure you have a think about is, how can you get your point across effectively? So here I would say you should really know your audience well, and you should make sure that your speech is tailored to the needs of your audience. So again, if we're talking about moot courts, then of course you know that you will be delivering your speech in front of a bench of judges that are trained in law, and that means you can actually from time to time use complex legal terms because you would expect them to have a solid knowledge of it. But if you're performing in front of, say, high school students or the audience that is not necessarily trained in law, then you would have to think about your speech, and you would have to make sure that you avoid this complex terminology to make sure that you can get your point across. And something else that I think I really want to draw your attention to today is putting emphasis on keywords, on this key message that you're trying to convey. I like to do that. I think it's a good technique, and I think it really makes your speech dynamic. And of course, ultimately, we're all trying to make sure that the speech is dynamic and not monotonous. Right. When we're talking about the pace of your speech here, of course, it's important to make sure that you can control it. And I think that one of those traps that you can fall into, especially when we're talking about the online setting, is that you will read from the script. You would assume that the audience won't be able to tell that you're actually reading from the script. But I think that what happens is you're really rushing when you read from the script. And it is easily noticeable. I can tell you that for sure, because I graded already in the final event, in the Skill 7 last year. It was an online exam already. And it is really clear, it's obvious when people read from the script. So I would recommend to try to memorize your speech as much as possible, especially the parts that you're sure you won't have to revise that much. So that would be the introduction, right? When you want to plead in front of the bench, of course, you already know what your core arguments will be, so it's a good idea to memorize them in advance. Right, something else that I think is important is that when you rush, it's actually something that is perceived as lack of confidence or nervousness, so that is also important to take that into consideration and really try to control your pace. And then the question is, how do I control my pace? What if I really have this problem? I think that perhaps something that will help you a lot is you can record yourself and then you can listen to your speech. I still do that because I know I have this problem, and I think most of the people have this problem from time to time. So it is a good technique, and you can go through the recording and you could see that, well, yes, here I was rushing a bit. I should probably just take a pause and move on. So that is, I think, that is a good technique. And by the way, if you have any questions in the meantime, you can ask them on the chat. Right. So nonverbal communication cues, if we go back to the graph that I showed you earlier, it's 55%, something that we wouldn't really expect, but it is really that important. So what is body language? Of course, you all know that it's crucial to maintain proper eye contact, but it's not only that. I think that it's equally important to pay attention to your facial expression, and that's especially something that you probably don't pay too much attention to when you actually observe the opponent. So in the moot court setting, what can happen is your opponent will deliver a speech, and they might advance some arguments that you personally think are ridiculous. And then what will happen is you will perhaps roll your eyes, or you would start yawning. And that's totally unacceptable, and actually something that is not appreciated at all. So that's something that I think you should definitely pay attention to. You should really be respectful. And of course, when we're talking about your body language, some of you really like to use hand gestures a lot. And I think that's a matter of personal preference, ultimately. Some judges really appreciate that. Of course, it depends on the cultures they're coming from. But if I were to give you one tip, that would be you can use your hands, you can use hand gestures from time to time, but try not to overuse them, because you never know what the background of the judges are. You never know what their personal preferences are. So it would be nice to not overuse it. Right. So keep an eye contact, that we already discussed. And again, if you don't keep an eye contact, if you read from the script, it will become obvious. So just please take that into consideration. Right. So common mistakes that, yes, Carolina?
Yeah, and what about body language in an online context? Because here we have, okay, hand gestures that we can do, but even like keeping eye contact becomes hard because my camera is up here, but I'm not looking at it. I'm either looking at just the screen, or I'm looking at the little squares with people, and of course my eyes are going to be lower in that situation. So how do we like compensate that in a way? Should we like try to stare at the camera, or does that come off as awkward even?
I would say perhaps it would be a good idea to record yourself and just to see what it looks like, because for me it's hard to say right now if it's awkward or not. But what I do actually is I record myself sometimes just to see what it looks like. It's awkward, it's okay-ish, and then I see maybe I shouldn't stare at the camera, because I agree with you that it does look a bit weird. So I would say, especially before these big events, it would help to record yourself and see how you can fix your camera, and probably that should help. Yes, so I agree that it is a bit challenging. It's actually very challenging in the online setting, but we have to come up with really creative solutions. So regarding the mistakes, yes, here I just wanted to, of course, discuss the content, because you will all be working on this scenario in international criminal law. So you should make sure that you have a thorough understanding of the subject matter. That goes without saying. But what does happen is you have a really good understanding of the subject matter, but yet you're not really enthusiastic about it, which is normal, of course. Just because you follow the ICC Moot Court project does not necessarily mean that you would all be passionate about international criminal law, right? But you would have to a certain extent, fake it just for 5 minutes or so for the purposes of the final event, to make sure that the assessor and the judges see that you're actually really invested and you really want to persuade them, because ultimately we're talking about representation, we're talking about the art of persuasion. Using voice inflection and adding emphasis, as I already mentioned, to important points, and also varying the pitch of your voice to express emotions is also very important. And I think that's probably one of the most important techniques to keep your audience engaged in your message. So other common mistakes that I wanted to draw your attention to is using filler words, or you may also call them hesitation marks. Does anyone know what a filler word or a hesitation mark is? Anyone? Carolina, is that you?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. It's all the ums and ems, yeah, exactly. And like.
And like, yes. I think, again, this is something that unfortunately happens to all of us from time to time and for multiple reasons. And I think, well, personally, I think what helps a lot is to just pause for a second rather than trying to speak and trying to, fill this pauses with this ums and likes. It's better to just make a pause, and that's actually a powerful technique that I've been trying, and it worked well so far. And there are also some apps that you can apparently download, and they also help you to get rid of this hesitation markers, and they actually mark the hesitation, the filler words, so you can record yourself and you can see when exactly you make those hesitation markers. So Something that I already mentioned is actively listening to your opponent. And here we need to, of course, be reminded of the 5 stages of active listening. So that is receiving, understanding, remembering, evaluating, and responding. And here I would probably cast your mind back to skills 2 when we had the client interview. You would remember that we were constantly reminding you that you should actively listen to the client. I don't know if you guys remember, but that really helps you a lot to get as much information as possible. And when we're talking about moot courts, I think it's absolutely crucial because here you're listening to the opponents, not because you want to come across as respectful, although that's of course very important, but it's also because you want to take notes of the arguments that they advance, and ultimately you would have to rebut those arguments. So what happens if you don't listen to the opponent is that you will simply not be able to rebut the arguments. And I think that's also very much relevant in the debate tournament competitions. You don't seem to listen carefully to the opponent. And then when it's your turn to speak, you can make some really brilliant arguments. But if the judges are really careful, if they really listen to you, they would spot that you're actually not responding to the opponent's arguments. You're just trying to introduce new arguments, and that goes to show that you didn't actively listen to the opponent. Right, so other common mistakes, reading an academic piece of work out loud. That's something that I really wanted to discuss today because it happens quite often in Skill 7, for instance, in the moot course as well. So when we're talking about the speech, when we're drafting the speech, we really need to make sure that the speech will be listenable because what some of you do occasionally is you draft a speech as if you're drafting an essay, or you actually read your essay out loud because you assume that just because you got a 9 for that essay, that would mean that you can read it out loud and get a decent grade. But the problem with that approach is that the speech would not be listenable, and it simply doesn't work like that. You need to use linking words, linking arguments in your speech that you don't necessarily use in your written speech. So for instance, you can add I argue or I submit. When we're talking about moot courts, that's I think something that is probably overused sometimes even. But when you want to make your submissions, it would help to say I submit that, and then you move on with your submission. Another linking argument that I like to use a lot is I would like to draw your attention to, because that really goes to show that you want to emphasize something, you think that it's really important, and the listener ultimately thinks that, oh, okay, well, she wants to draw my attention to that, then I need to make sure that I listen to it. So now I want to give a bit more tips about the ICC Moot Court project and the final event. As you all know, you will actually be pleading in that final event, and you are year 2 students, so I assume that you don't necessarily have too much experience with moot courts unless you participated in some competitions already. But in any case, you should be aware of the court etiquette. You should be aware of some of the tricks when it comes to polishing your opening statement and polishing your speech. So let me begin with the opening statement. So here, as I already mentioned, what you can do is you can actually draft it in advance and you can memorize it, because the arguments that you will be advancing, of course, might be revised to a certain extent, but the bulk of it will be the same. So it would be great if you could introduce yourself, introduce your colleagues, and then move on with your strongest arguments. And that is the part of speech that you can rehearse, that you can practice multiple times. And the reason why it's good to memorize it is because, of course, that's the first thing that you will say, and that's the first impression. And of course, we all know that the first impression matters a great deal. So once you've memorized the speech, you will then proceed to advancing your arguments, and you probably know that you might be interrupted by the judges, so I'll come to that as well. Right, so when we're talking about the judges and when we actually receive questions with the judges, it's very important that you think on your feet and that you're not too anxious, because I know that it can be a bit off-putting to be interrupted in the middle of a sentence, especially, and you might feel a bit lost, and you might also be under the impression that what you're talking about doesn't really make sense. But it does. Please note that most of the times judges interrupt you because they want a bit of clarification, or they actually want you to give more information to strengthen your argument even further. So when judges interrupt you, you need to see it as some sort of an engagement with the bench, and you need to be cooperative. Something that might happen is that the judge will ask you a question that you unfortunately don't have a clear answer to. And I think that's one of those dilemmas. You don't really know how to behave because on the one hand, you want to come across as knowledgeable and creative, but then on the other hand, you don't want to fool the judge. You don't want to misinterpret the law just for the sake of answering the question. So if that happens, I think that what you can do first is you can thank the judge. So what you can say is something along the lines of, "Thank you for your question, Your Excellency." And that already helps you to get some time to think about the question. But if you really think that you don't have a plausible answer to that question, that's totally fine. So you can perhaps try to ask the judge to reformulate the question, because that might actually be as simple as that. The question was awkwardly phrased, right? It can happen. And then the judge will reformulate the question. But if you notice that, yes, I really don't know the answer to this question still, then instead of wasting the time of the bench and instead of wasting your time, because keep in mind that you only have, I think, 5 to 7 minutes or so, it's better to just acknowledge that you don't know the answer. So you could say something like, "Thank you for your question," or "That's a very interesting question. That's a very important question." Because, of course, if you use this kind of language, then the judge would feel good about themselves that they ask really intelligent questions, right? And then you could say, "That's a very important question, but unfortunately, I don't have the answer at the moment, and I will get back to you," something like that. Of course, you'll never get back to them, but that goes to show that you're a professional, that you're serious, and that you're willing to cooperate, even if it's once you're done with your speech and you can go do some extra research. Right, let me see what else I have here. Yes, so just something that I wanted to mention when we talk about court etiquette is when you introduce yourself, once you talked about the arguments that you're going to advance, once you briefly summarize the submissions, it will also help if you could offer the judges a brief summary of the facts of the case. So what you can do is you can ask them if they'd like to hear a brief summary of the facts of the case, but you don't have to summarize the facts of the case. And I think this is one of those common mistakes that students make. They think that they can summarize the facts of the case, but that doesn't really add any value to your argument because, of course, most of the judges, hopefully, will have read the fact pattern, so they should have a decent, let's hope so, understanding of the fact pattern. Right, so, but in any case, it will help if you at least offer them this opportunity, and in 99% of the cases, they will say no. Well, in the ICC moot court project, of course, they will say no. But when we're talking about international competitions, it does happen occasionally that the judges, unfortunately, haven't had the chance to read the fact pattern thoroughly. Right, so that is, I think, it for this part. The formalities, of course, is something that you should be aware of. So when you address the bench, you address them by your excellencies. So if we're talking about the ICC or the ICJ, then that's how you address the judges, your excellencies. If we're talking about common law jurisdictions, then it's your honor. So in the ICC moot court setting, it would be your excellency. So please don't say your honor because that's just wrong. Avoid something like we think, we believe, it is obvious that. I think that one is probably the worst. Or the applicant is wrong if you're the respondent. That is something that you should avoid because when, for instance, with it is obvious that example, you should keep in mind that nothing is obvious, because if it was obvious, then we wouldn't have discussed it in the first place. We wouldn't have spent a month and month preparing our submissions and delivering them ultimately before the bench. So that way you undermine not only the arguments advanced by your opponent, but just the whole moot court process. Right, so instead of saying we think or we believe or I think and I believe, you should say, of course, depending on who you're representing, the respondent submits, the respondent argues, that's also acceptable, or the applicant submits, the applicant argues. If you disagree with, let's say, the respondent, instead of saying the respondent is wrong, you should say the applicant respectfully disagrees with the respondent. But that in and of itself will not suffice, because you need to back this up with the arguments. So please don't just say that you disagree, but you actually need to provide some hard evidence of why you disagree. Right, so we already discussed that you should actively listen to your opponent, and that of course applies in the ICC moot court setting as well. And we discussed the questions and answers, so what you should be doing if you don't know the answer. And something that I think I should also emphasize is keeping track of time. Again, I'm not sure if you have 5 minutes to plead in the final event, but in any case, you should practice in advance and you should keep track of time, because it does happen that you're still in the middle of your first argument, but then your time is up, and that's very unfortunate, and you really want to advance as many arguments as you possibly can. Right, so some of the useful sources that I wanted to share with you are on the slide. The first one is a video where a practicing barrister from the UK is talking about his experience with moot courts, and I think this one is excellent because he's also talking about the BPTC course. That's a course from barristers, and he's actually giving examples to the students that are about to become practicing barristers. And some of the techniques that he talked about are absolutely great. So I would really encourage you to watch that video. I probably watched it 10 times already, and it all really helps a lot. Something else that you can potentially do if you have time is watching the actual ICC moot court competition, just to, you know, get to grips with all this court etiquette and see what it looks like. So that's actually the ICC moot court competition organized by Leiden University. It's different from the ICC moot court project that you're participating here as part of your second year. But just want to perhaps take this opportunity to advertise all the moot courts that we have here at The Hague University that you can potentially participate in your third year. That's the Tellers moot in public international law, the ICC moot court in international criminal law, the VIS moot court in commercial law. There's also the EU law moot court in EU law, obviously. So if you're interested, and I would say if you enjoy Skill 7 and the ICC moot court, then you should definitely consider applying next year, because we usually recruit third-year students, and you can get credits, of course, up to 10 credits for this course. So do consider it, and do perhaps some research on the moot course that I've just mentioned, and you can apply next year. We'll always be happy to review your applications. And there are two more links. One is the Philip Jessup International Law Moot Court Competition that we're unfortunately not participating in yet, but I thought that the speech was excellent, the delivery was excellent, so you can perhaps just watch it. It's really short, I think it's 4 minutes long or so, but it really gives you the idea of what they're looking for. And there are some MOOCs as well. So that's the online course on Coursera in ICL and in public international law. So if that's your area of interest, you can perhaps consider exploring it a bit further. And I just gave you some sources for that. Okay, I think that's about it. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Yes, if anyone has any question, you can whether raise your hand or use the chat if you're in the team. And
in the meantime, if I can ask Ms. Gabiova, if you could also share the links in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Because then it's easier to see them. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we'll do.
Thank you. Okay, I do not see any hands raised.
but anyways, thank you, because like the presentation was very thorough. Also for I'm year 3, but also for the oral presentation and submission for the ICC Moot Court, that was really interesting, and I wish I participated in something like this last year. But yes.
Are you now in your 3rd year?
Yes, yes.
You can still apply next year, by the way.
Oh, no,
yes,
no. I meant for the project.
Okay, the project.
But
okay.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing the whole time. I was like, oh, nice to know. But no, thank you very, very much. And yeah, I hope this helped you, help you guys a lot, because I know those were like the inputs that we received. And well, it's almost 8. I do not see any hands raised, so I think we can yeah, we can close it here, I guess. And thank you very much again to both Ms. Donald and Ms. Gaibova from the study coach team, because we really appreciate it a lot, you taking these extra hours and collaborating with us to help all the students. And it's always nice to see that, you know, we have we have people that want to help us in
thank you very much for your enthusiasm.
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate that. Yes.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone. Good luck.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.